ways on how to improve your cosplay photography. I am a treat and I asked a few cosplayers for some of their best works and some of the ones that they might not be as proud of, and I'm going to feature them here on my channel, and we're going to talk about some of the techniques they use, specifically related to composition, posing. I did this program in high school where you can get an extra credit by doing a course off campus at a local college, and my teacher was a professional photographer, and I've also have my own professional camera that I take for photos, and I feel like I have some level of experience with photography and cosplay that I feel confident that I can talk about this subject. I really want to start out with this main technique that's pretty much like the baseline for photography, and I feel like you might even be familiar with it. Have you ever seen this grid pattern before? I'm pretty sure that if you have like an Apple phone, there's a way that you can set up this grid pattern. I'm not too sure about Android. It is actually important for photography. If you do not have access to this feature, it's pretty much just a guideline. Like, you don't have to be exactly on point, and I'm going to tell you why. This technique is called the rule of threes, okay? Yes, I know that it's confusing because you see these 4 points. If anything important happens on those 4 points, it is considered like good. I think the reason why it's called a rule of threes is because you like to have preferably those at least 3 points. You know what I mean? Like up to 3 points. What you want to do is make sure that the interesting thing that you're taking a photo of, if it's not in the center of the screen, you want it to either be on the grid lines or at the points of interest. For example, if I'm like here and taking a photo, this would be like the grid line. Generally, right? I have an example up here of a photo shoot I did a while back for a YouTube video. I think it's called Photo Shoot in a Forest or something, and I did a photo shoot with my sister, and in this photo you can see that my sister and the tree, they align along one of the grid lines, and they hit 2 points of interest. And if you look at the photo, it looks like a pretty decent photo. And that's pretty much the key. If it's not in the center of the frame, you can use these little points of interest as a guideline to make your photos feel more interesting. That way you're not just like, hey, like a little, you know? I have a photo here by a friend called Jaded Snow White Wolf on Instagram. Their name is Rabbit, and you can tell that with the Hinata cosplay, it falls perfectly on one of those grid lines. And you can see that even the words that's being pointed at in the photo falls along one of the points of interest. This is part of what makes the photo look so interesting. Are you starting to understand the rules? I got another example for you for what would be considered a bad photo. Like, it's not exactly bad, but it doesn't follow this composition rule. It's a funny photo from my friend Shannon. They go by Shannon North on Instagram, and you can tell that the Resident Evil cosplay, it doesn't follow along the line of the grid pattern. Obviously, this photo is made to be a funny photo. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. That's why it's being shown as kind of like the bad example. It's not in the center and it's not on the grid pattern, so it looks not very professional, right? It's okay because it's a funny photo. Not all of your photos have to be professional or for serious, but this is mainly if you want it to look more professional. This is one of those rules you want to keep in mind. Here's another basic photography rule, but it's really more like a guideline, and it's something I like to call filling out the frame. It's when you want to take like a portrait photo or like an up close photo, or maybe like head to hips. What you don't really want to do, or what you want to avoid for the most part, is empty spaces. I got another example here by my friend Shannon, and the photographer went by Urs Audacieux. The photographer is based in Montreal, and they also have a YouTube channel if you want to check that out. Here's my friend Shannon. You can tell how to fill out some of the empty spaces. They have their hands spread across the screens, like she is in the center of the frame, but her hands spread out and fills out the frame, you know? Like there's not as many empty spaces. And you could tell that this is obviously a very like professional quality photo. When the photo, you can see it kind of blurred. Shannon becomes the focus of interest. I know that not everyone has access to a professional camera, so not everyone can blur their photos. But I do know that for some phones, to blur the background better or to focus better on the person of interest, if you're just using like a cell phone, you can just poke at the person's face when taking the photo, and that helps focus it. For example, I'm using my phone right now, and if I put my hand up here, you can tell that my hand is clearer and I'm a bit more blurry. That's kind of what you want. It's not very like noticeable as much on a phone. It's usually tends to be more subtle. Like, hold on, I'm just gonna go. Then, see? Point of interest is my hand. I hope that helped. Here we have another cosplay photo from Rabbit. It is a very good photo. The posing is really nice. I like how they're not just sitting there. They have their hands doing something interesting. It's really in character. Love that. We're gonna talking about posing later. I promise you. But my main critique or problem with this photo is the fact that it doesn't really follow the idea of filling the frame. I do want to say that you don't have to completely fill the frame, but you see how there's a lot of extra space at the top of the photo compared to at the bottom? There's not a lot of balance. What it tends to make a photo look more professional is when there seems to be like a balance between the left and right side or the up and down side. If there's more stuff to look at on one side of the camera, does it feel as on purpose? Like it doesn't hit the grid pattern or the points of interest, then it can feel a little less professional. So what I would say would make this photo better is some super easy step that literally anyone can do, is just to crop it. Like I cropped this photo and it already looks so much better. You could just do that in like your photo gallery or like in Canva. And I personally think it looks more professional. Just because I'm giving criticism, that doesn't mean the photos that I'm showing are inherently bad. It's just I'm using and applying certain rules of photography that could help it look more professional, right? You don't need to have the most professional looking photos to be a cosplayer. You are still valid in your way of expressing yourself. But this is mainly if you have an interest in improving that skill set. I hope that this video can become a resource for you. Another thing about Jaded White Wolf's photo, if you're going to crop something and you're worried that I don't know how to crop something or I don't know how to make it look nice, I like to do this. If you do not want to like completely fill out the frame and you still want like some amount of space, what I like to do is make sure that you see how there's space at the bottom and space at the top in between where the person posing is sitting. If we crop the top a little bit and we match the length of the top to the bottom, then we can focus more on the cosplayer in the center. It just looks right. I don't know. This is literally just the best way I can explain how to make photos better in photography is mainly just the concept of it just looks right, which is so vague, but when you're talking about something creative, that's pretty much it. It's something that you have to see to understand. I'm going to use another example from Shannon. Here you go. It's a cosplay K-pop Demon Hunters, one of the characters from the, what's her name? My Little Soda Pop. Her Saja Boys cosplay. You There are a lot of people who like doing this weird like angle thing. I am victim of this as well, sadly. I think that it's really just a personal interest thing, that some people really like it, some people don't mind as much. But the reason why I'm pinpointing out this photo in particular is that there's a lot of empty space on the top left corner and the bottom right corner. I went ahead and edited it, shifted the photo a bit to show you how it would look like more filled out. And comparing these two photos next to each other, you might start to understand more what I mean by filling out the frame. Like the one on the left, all these empty spaces take away the focus from the cosplayer, but on this side, the cosplayer, it grabs your attention. This is just specifically for this technique. Shannon actually has a similar photo when the photo's taken on an angle, which looks amazing by the way, but that's a completely different photography technique, which I'm going to tell you about. So don't feel bad if you are one of those people who do the weird angly thing. I do too, but I definitely feel like people overdo it a little, like, and it can genuinely prevent you from reaching your full potential for photography. Here's another example of a photo of the cosplayer Shannon that was taken by Urs Audacieux, and you can see how Shannon takes up the entire photo. There's not a lot of space, empty space. I'm not saying that every single photo has to fill the frame, but when we're looking more at these portrait photos or like these up close photos, it tends to be preferred. Next, I want to talk about posing, because I feel like this is one of the more important things. Like, you can't really take a photo without being in it. One of the things is important is the shape of your body, which sounds weird. I'm not talking about like the literal like your size or proportions or nothing like that. I mean the way you're moving your body, right? And you're also going to want to look at staying in character or expressing emotions. Here's an example from the cosplayer L After Dark, who's a friend of mine. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the most interesting photo photography wise, but it is really interesting posing wise, because you can tell that Ellie has like this shape going on, this angle, which makes it more interesting. Like, you don't want to just be standing there still like a box not knowing what to do. You really want to be utilizing your body and expressing who this character is. Who are you portraying? You want to be creating angles or like curves. You want something that isn't square. And they also have a more serious expression going on in the photo. The one thing I would say is that maybe the viewpoint needs a little work, which I'm going to talk about soon. But this is really just like a really good posing. This is also a photo from Ellie After Dark, and you can see how the character isn't posing like necessarily in a way where their body proportions are super exaggerated. I think that I prefer those exaggerated shapes. Like, maybe Elle could have like their shoulders more this way and their hips more out, but honestly, it is a great pose where even if you're standing still, you could still create some shape or character to your body. Like I've mentioned before in filling out the frame, for this photo you could probably take out some of the space on the top right corner. This obviously seems to be like a photo taken by a loved one in an unprofessional setting, which makes sense. We got another photo here by Shannon again, and you can see how with their arms, they have their arms in these angles. They're creating like this more, I guess, diamond shape with their body. that's something that you'd want to see for posing. I have another example of Shannon here. These are photos they took in her studio. I like that because it's creating this balance, right? Where her head's up here, the center of the photo, there's part of her body going this way, and then there's part of her body going this way again, and it creates this kind of symmetrical balance within the photo, and it's also filling out the entire frame, which I think makes the photo look interesting. We've talked about posing, we've talked about facial expressions. Now I want to talk about viewpoint. And really what viewpoint is just the angle in which you're taking the photo. Most people are tempted to want to take the photo front facing, head on. Completely fine, right? Completely fine. But if you want to make your photos look more interesting, or if you want to make your poses look more lived in, this is where viewpoint comes in. You could probably take a photo from higher up, especially those kinds of photos tend to look good in like sitting down positions. So you're looking up, down at the person. I've seen a lot of people when they're in a standing position to have a photo downwards looking upwards. There was the photo that I mentioned previously by Elle After Dark up here. I feel like it'd be more interesting if it was lower and you were able to see the shoes as well, so you can get a view of the entire cosplay and have the photo taken a bit further back. I have another photo of Shannon here with her Resident Evil cosplay. I feel like it'd be really playful if you took a photo where the viewpoint is closer to the gun. I've seen tons of people do it before, and I think that that would look really nice if you had it the gun, like whether it was shooting at the camera or shooting kind of like close up here with the gun in the hand. For this technique, I feel like you don't see a lot in cosplays, but I still think it's something that would be important to know. I have some non-cosplay examples that I've taken before of like this street and inside this fancy church, where you can see how this concept is called leading lines, okay? You can see how in the photo there's like these imaginary lines that all focus in on one focal point. If you are an artist, you've probably seen somebody talk about this technique before. And so this might be more familiar to you. The lines go to one point. It doesn't necessarily have to be straight lines. I've seen like winding lines, just lines in general. Like our eyes like to follow it, right? And it likes to follow it to where they lead. And when you are taking photos, there is naturally depth, because like the world is filled with depth. So the far away things are going to look closer together, which brings in these lines to look like they're on an angle, even though in real life they're not actually. I have an amazing example from Shannon. Remember how I said earlier that I tend to prefer to avoid those weird angled photos? This is a case where I am in love with the fact that they chose to do a angled photo. I love how with her cosplay you can see all of these lines going into the corner of the photo. It looks so good. This also kind of applies to what I've talked about viewpoint, where you're changing the way you're taking the photo or the position you're taking the photo, even though it's like at this very weird angle. Those leading lines make it such a good photo. There are many other photography techniques I was hoping to talk about on this channel, but I didn't really get a lot of people interested in submitting photos for a video, so I didn't have enough examples to talk about them. So I'm hoping that if you liked this video and if you want to see another video similar to this one, that you check out my Instagram and maybe send me over some of your photos if you're interested, and I could show them to talk about more photography techniques. Or if you want advice on your photos, I can show them off in my video. Honestly, I'm just so thankful for everyone who sent their photos for this video. Thank you to my friend Shannon. Thank you to Elle After Dark. Thank you to Rabbit. And thank you to that one photographer, Urs Audacieux, for allowing me to use your work. I'm really happy that I'm able to do videos like this, and I hope in the future I can have videos that are more community centered. I hope that the next time I talk about photography, I could talk more about like contrast and like background, foreground, and things like tonal balance, but I just don't have enough examples to show you. And I hope that this video was useful to you, and please, if this video was good for you, let me know in the comments. And I'm a tree. I suck at outros. Please check out the people who were featured in this video, although they're very nice. I suck at outros.